What did he do as a 9 to 5?
I don't know what you call him. He was different. He never filled out a job application, I can tell you that. You know, I got a lot of stories. I know a lot of stories, and I've heard a lot more. Shooting on roller skates, you know, we had to go buy a pair of roller skates. People couldn't believe it. Like the things he would bring up to even bet, people, it was so outlandish. Yes, people were going to bet him.
You tried to offer me dip, didn't you? That's not dip, though, is it?
Well, it's just like Zen. It's like the newest, hottest. It's like a healthy chew.
I liked dip when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know why that was associated with baseball, but it was a fun habit to have as a kid. And I say kid, like 13.
Yeah, a little sunflower seeds in the chew.
Yeah, the sunflower seeds didn't come along yet. It was definitely, we had Hawken. Do you remember Hawken?
Yeah, well,
It was real candy-ish.
We had Skull.
Yeah, we had Skull, but if you
man.
had to start out with Hawken. Like you could put the whole can in your mouth, you wouldn't get a buzz. But if you had Skull, it would light your ass.
Yeah.
You get lightheaded and stuff. So I thank you for coming in for this. I know it hasn't been a year yet in your family. As we were talking prior to recording this, you've lost 2 siblings now in your life, and you're not a very old man. So it's tough to hear about that. And for you to come in here less than a year later, I do appreciate it.
I'm grateful to be here.
And I'm grateful that you have a lot going on in your life too, because your business is doing well. You've kept yourself, plenty busy, I imagine, since spring?
Yes.
And it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, you got to, really. I mean, it's easy to lay down and sleep all day and do all that, I think. But, yeah, you got good people around you and you got something to do every day or you got goals. I mean, it definitely helps, that's for sure.
What were you doing before this?
I owned a landscaping company in town just based on the east side called Grass Kickers. We had that for about, I think, 9 years. And then Colonial Classic here in the big nursery on the east side bought us out, bought our customers, and bought everything. And I go to work for them for marketing. I get on their Facebook and do ads and pictures and clown around.
So to explain that to someone that has never started a business, you started a business yourself, and someone came along eventually because it was successful enough and purchased it.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I started with my other brother, Corey, who passed away. Always working third shift jobs, stuff like that. I wanted to do something different. I started a lawn care company, went from 10 clients to 40 to 160, just right here on the east side, kind of nicer homes, and had a lot of clientele. And, we did well for ourselves, and, we're able to sell it. Obviously, Colonial saw enough value in it to purchase it, and a couple of my good buddies actually purchased Colonial this year, so that kind of helped with the sell as well. And here we are, man.
So we obviously we wanted you to come in and talk about your brother.
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary person.
Yeah, he is, man.
It's like Bobby Riggs. It's just we have a local celebrity that a lot of people away from here know, but locally may not know some of these stories.
Right.
Because these stories are being told by people in other places a lot of times. And especially at a time when there was no cell phones necessarily, where people weren't capturing some of these prop bets, as they would call it, on video.
It'd be the best Netflix documentary you ever saw, I promise you.
So Nikki Hayden's the same way in Owensboro. People in Owensboro, they know Nikki Hayden.
Sure.
But they don't understand how big a deal he is everywhere else. And your brother's the same way. Right when he passed, there was a couple guys in Vegas that just told yarns about this online. And they were pretty impressive stories. And maybe we can get to some of them too. And,
sure.
And I'm sure you've also heard some of these stories yourself from him.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody better than his sibling, his younger brother, to share some of this. So what did he do as a 9 to 5?
There's 2 different parts of him. Growing up, obviously he was a great athlete, played for UE, went on to South Carolina, ended up getting drafted by the Reds, wasn't making any money doing that, and started playing poker with the guys in the hotel rooms and online. That was when the internet really started banging with internet poker. Chris Moneymaker came out and won $7 million, and the internet, blew up with poker, and he got into it. So he was a poker player. I mean, he traveled the world, mainly Vegas, because that's where the action was. But I don't know if you call him a gambler. People call him a hustler. You call him whatever. And he was just sharp. He was really sharp. I don't know what you call him. He was different. He never filled out a job application, I can tell you that.
So since college, obviously he didn't make the Reds roster, but that happens to a lot of players and their prospects. They just want to, yeah. So he doesn't go on to play, professional baseball, but immediately just goes into the gambling world.
Right. He moved into my grandma's little house over in Jimtown on 3rd Avenue, and he was playing internet poker. Started out with small buy-ins, and worked his way up, and making very, very good money.
But you would agree that that's not the best way to maybe go about life. Like if you're early on in your life,
he went to school at UE and had a good education at Memorial, and then he comes home. He had a criminal justice degree, and obviously never even thought about that. He just got into gambling, and obviously they were worried. We all kind of like, what? But
that's the extraordinary part about it, really. I guess you'd call him a hustler, but in some of those stories people tell, he's not trying to hustle people. He's just trying to have people make poor decisions.
Right.
And I don't think he gave them a second chance a lot of times to lose their money, or I don't think he lost to gain a double or nothing bet. Right. And then to maybe compound on that. I don't think that's what he was after.
Totally opposite.
Most of those stories, he's not. It's the victim. And I don't want to call him a victim. It's the rube that really made the decision to go along with this stupid bet.
Right.
But most of them, they're going off what they know. And people don't hit more than 60% three-pointers. People don't hit 98 free throws,
right,
in a gymnasium somewhere that they're not familiar with.
Right.
They don't do that. And those are just great stories. There's an Illinois teacher that beat him one time. That's the only story I could find of him being not really interested in betting somebody. And there was some Illinois teacher that could just hit an unreal amount of either free throws or three-pointers.
Right, three-pointers, yeah. He used to watch the guy on the internet. He said it's the only guy he's ever scared to play. The guy's got the world record for three-pointers. That's what he does for a living, outside of teaching. But, yeah, he wouldn't back down. And obviously, as the older he got, the more money he got, or the more successful he was, I think it was about competition, man. He always loved to compete ever since being a young age. It was the competition. He wanted to beat your ass, and he was going to do it however he had to do it.
He was a Mr. Basketball runner-up.
To Tom Coverdale.
Do you think he should have played in the pros in any other sport?
I know he had a look. He tried out for the not a tryout, but he went to he had a private deal, I think, with the Detroit Pistons. He was good. Me, his little brother, I think he could have played. I think after the fact, I think he went to the wrong school. We love the University of Evansville, but the way Jimmy Cruz coached back then, it was just a different style of ball. He was run and gun. He would have been better off going to play for Bruce Pearl at USI, or he had offers to go play everywhere. Everybody in the Big Ten wanted him. And he had committed to Bobby Knight. And then it was the last tournament of the year. I remember his senior year, we were down in, only time my family ever went to Walt Disney World. Like I said, we grew up kind of podunk. But when we got to travel, it was because of Clint's All-Stars or something like that. So we went down to Walt Disney World. UE was there like they were at every game. And kind of shocked everybody on the way home. He said, "I'm going to the University of Evansville." And it wasn't 8 hours later, we got off the road, and they did a press conference at Memorial, and the rest was history.
Yeah. You almost wish he would have went on to the pros. But then again, we wouldn't have these stories.
Right.
I mean, he would have signed a contract worth probably 4 or 5 of these bets in the first month.
Right.
So
he did all right.
So, most folks, if they haven't researched someone like Bobby Riggs, it's just a person that I guess just gets off on, taking people, just getting over on somebody, beating them,
Sure.
And if you don't know what prop bets, some folks don't even know what prop bets are. This is the first time they ever heard of that. You could bet on anything, really.
Right.
We could bet on a fly, which is probably likely in this hot pole barn, to land on this table within, the next 30 seconds if we wanted that being a prop bet. So
Sure.
I don't know where he came up with some of these. Did he practice things? Did he practice beforehand and think, okay, I may need this. This may come up. I may need to, play ping pong with a spatula.
Right.
Is that something he practiced?
We grew up with a ping pong table. A lot of them Memorial, I witnessed a lot of fighting and laughing, and we grew up with a ping pong table. But yeah, a lot of the things he's done, man. A lot of these bets, racing backwards and I got a lot of stories. I know a lot of stories, and I've heard a lot more.
When did you know that your brother was, maybe extraordinary? What's the first story you heard? What's the first, I don't know, were you witness to something?
Yeah, the first stories, him racing around Ellis Park for $20,000.
On a horse?
No, running. And there's a lot of stories you tell and people couldn't even fathom. They wouldn't believe these stories. He never liked to talk about it.
But you can't take us back to Ellis Park right now?
Yeah, and I don't know the fella's name. This was a couple years out of UE. Yeah, he raced a guy. I think he gave him, I don't know, I guess 2 furlongs, probably gave him 12 feet. Supposed to be a high-class runner here in town, a good athlete.
So this is, how recent is this?
This is when he was young. This is kind of when it started. Obviously, you hear the stories down at the Fox and Hound of him playing for $5,000 with the spatula and all that. That's all true.
Yeah.
But he's done some extraordinary things with the basketball, shooting 3-pointers on roller skates, racing college and professional athletes on top of the Bellagio.
Well, let's get back to Ellis Park real quick. So he gives this guy a 2 furlong lead, which is what, 2 horses?
Yeah, you say 2 horses. Yeah, 12 feet.
And what's the bet?
I think it was for $10K, and then right at the last minute, some other guys were involved. 'Cause a lot of times when you do these prop bets and you're betting for big money, you may not have the money, but you got a guy that knows you can run, and he's going to put up the money, right? So I think it ended up being $20,000.
So he makes $20,000 off Ellis Park. How did they gain access to Ellis Park?
Man, I'm not even sure how they got on. He found a way.
I mean, you could walk on the backside over there.
Yeah, I'm sure they parked somewhere
by the levee, really easy.
Not even sure if he stretched, But that was.
And they did the whole thing, or they just did like a short distance?
The whole track.
The entire track.
The entire track.
And how bad he beat him?
He started off real slow. The guy was beating him by 40 yards at the beginning, but he'd always tell that story how I knew he was going to tire out.
For $20,000.
Yeah.
Wow. And this is like what? What year is this?
Probably 2006, 2007.
Really? I was in town. I wish I'd have been at Ellis Park that day.
Yeah, and he didn't. Not many stories around here. Obviously, he was.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Vegas.
Yeah.
So you go out, and I have a friend that he dabble. He's the closest person I have in my life that's a professional gambler. He's a real accountant. Works up near Chicago. In fact, he's ponied up some money, for this equipment.
Awesome.
Because he's known me for a long time.
Yeah.
So people invest in this stuff. It's not easy to go out to Vegas and win. First of all, I've heard stories, people, and I've heard them from your brother, in the sense that I've read some things that he said about Las Vegas. It's just a city of fools, really. I mean,
money from a baby.
I'm not being too eloquent, but yeah, he was not impressed with the people there on the ground in Vegas, and it was a breeding ground for someone like him, really.
He said they had the money, they're going to give it away. He's going to be the one to get it.
Yeah, but just playing poker with people is one thing. I mean, you're reading people, and there's things like that. But the prop bets, I don't even know where these arguments would come up to where you would, like the ping pong with the spatula. The baseball, you say a 3-sport athlete. What were the 3 sports? You got baseball, basketball. What was the other one?
Baseball, basketball, and football.
But he's playing ping pong. He's playing tennis. He's playing golf. So he's really not just a 3-sport athlete at all. I mean, yeah, maybe officially in record books he is, but no, he was beyond a 3-sport athlete if he's playing those sports too.
Totally wings, pitching quarters. He was different, man.
The Vegas exploits, that's what I heard first, hitting a 97 or more in a free throw shooting contest. He's not a free throw shooter, though, was he?
The three's where the money's at. That's where nobody's going to take in your eyes, you wouldn't think, they want to see you shoot the 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Right? I think anybody goes out there in the driveway and hit 85 out of 100. But the 3-pointer, that's where nobody's going to take your bet. Nobody's going to think you can hit 85 or 90 out of 100.
And where do you meet these people?
Well, I think, when you're up late, when you think about a poker life, and I used to work third shift, so like I was up eating lunch at 3 o'clock in the morning at this point of his life early on. You're sitting there with a bunch of guys that got a lot of money, and like I said, the poker gets boring after a while. They all start talking and playing around, and one thing leads to another, and that's where he's kind of set it up. Obviously, you're not going to give me your best number right off the bat, but I can go out and hit 80 out of 100, kind of see what the guys would say, after you say something like that, look around the table, who's listening? One guy will lead to another, and then they'll say, well, I'll bet you 10,000 you can't hit 85 out of 100 threes. There's no way. there's a story in Vegas. They were out there, and they had a bet going on. This, like I said, this is just another one. And a guy wanted to shoot for $20,000. Well, it was like 3:30 in the morning. The gym was going to close. They ended up getting in the gym, paying him an extra $200 to keep the gym open for 30 minutes, or whatever it was. They were all in there, Clint and two other buddies that I'm not going to mention, but Clint's in there stretching, and I'm not sure what he was wearing, probably a polo shirt and khakis, And the guy walks in. Well, it was Nelly, the rapper.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nelly walked in with two other guys, and within 2 minutes, he looked at Clint and said, "I wouldn't have got out of bed if I knew it was him." He said, everybody knows this guy, So they didn't shoot. Make a long story short, Nelly wouldn't do it. But yeah, man, he got a lot of action. There's several stories. There's stories of him shooting on roller skates. We had to go buy a pair of roller skates. That was the prop bet, and he missed his. That's what he said. I was scared for it. Then he said I figured out. Well, at first they wanted him to get his own rebounds, where he'd have to skate and get his own rebounds. So they said, we're not doing that. We're not going to skate and get our own rebounds, come back up and get set.
No.
So they agreed to where he could stand there and shoot. But, as you shoot, you think on roller skates, you're falling back 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah.
Right? So, but he figured out early, I guess, after 3 or 4 shots, that if he stood up on his toes, on his stoppers, it's just like just like shooting with him, getting up on your toes. And, I think he hit 87 out of 100.
I know there were stories about, just in the poker rooms, certain NBA players or other people knew him too. So it wasn't the only time I heard that. But Nelly's just from St. Louis.
Right.
So maybe, the echoes do carry from Evansville to St. Louis.
He shot Paul Pierce twice for $10K. So they doubled or nothing. They got him twice. So he's another professional athlete. But there's a lot. Every night he'd send pictures. You think you're playing in a high-limit poker room. The guys with, a lot of money. He would send us text messages with, pictures of guys, famous people every day. I mean, it was just a different life he lived.
And they just kind of pissed away money, though, sometimes, too, didn't they?
That's what he said. They're going to waste it on something. I'm going to take it home and...
They need amusement, too, though.
Sure.
They're looking for that high.
They want that. That's the competition, man. They want it. 6 or 7 years ago, we went down for the NCAA tournament. That's the biggest time of the year. That's when the guys come in with the big money. They gamble. They watch the games. They're betting on the games. So I went down there with him. Mike Blake Jr., Jeff Anderson, a lot of my brother's friends.
Oh, there's another Mike Blake?
Yeah, Junior. Yeah, well, you know that. But it was a good time. It was the only time I've ever been. And, man, I kid you not. So we walk in the Bellagio. He said, "You're not going to believe this." And here I am, scared to death. Like I said, I don't gamble. I don't do any of that. We walk in there, and right off the bat, people are yelling, Clint, or Clark. They all called him Clark Kent. That was his nickname. And, man, we just felt like we were at home. We felt like you were walking into Trony or walking into a local place here in town. It was different. I remember it struck me as odd, and I remember telling Mike and Jeff, and they're like, holy shit, like, these, here we are in Vegas, and these guys are all yelling across the poker room and all throughout Bellagio and, yelling my brother's name and coming up, wanting to hug him and fist bump him and talking about what's going on and, we're playing here, we're playing there, and I think I got a bet for you. And it was the first time I ever went. Yeah, and it was a hell of a time.
Did he ever lose? Did you ever see that?
I saw him lose. Yeah, I did. I saw him lose. To see him lose was kind of, man, it was so weird that, like you said, it was kind of funny. But like you said, man, he would always go double or nothing. He'd always find a way to get it back. But I did see him lose.
When you have a life like your brother, I would imagine, after a while you just get tired of it.
Yeah.
The family did such a great thing for my soul. But I needed to be single for most of those years because of my job.
Right.
And it was just the way it was. And if you're out in Vegas living in a hotel room and you don't know where your next meal's coming from, if that's how you're living, not that he was in any kind of desperate situation, but some people do live like that out there. And if you don't know what your next meal is going to be, it's no way to live with a family. He did eventually settle down, though, and he did so with someone from Evansville? Or did he meet somebody out there?
Actually, Hannah, his wife Hannah, she was from Illinois. They hit it off. He was single for a long time, lived the life that we all dream of living, but he would always preach, too. I'm the youngest of 4, and I was the first one to have, my son Graham, his little nephew, and man, he was so good to him. But he would always say, I'd give up all my money to have what you have, a family. And he worked so hard to, and I think he wanted to be successful. He wanted to have something. He didn't want to, like I said, we grew up poor, man. We had an amazing life, went to Catholic schools, all that. But we did grow up poor, and I don't think that maybe scared him, but he wanted to be successful first. I think he did it the right way. They say 40 years old, maybe too old, but
he eventually did have a little boy.
Yeah, he did, little Kobe. he had them a year after they, got together, and yeah, it changed his life, man. Best dad in the world. That's where he turned from like the hustler, the clown, out every week chasing the cash. He was set up at that time, so yeah, it really changed him. That's where he turned into a businessman. Started buying properties and real estate and putting his money to work.
And most of those people he probably befriended out there did those things, and maybe he just gained the knowledge the whole time.
Right, and like I said, when you're sitting at tables with, for guys to give away and lose the amount of money they did, right? They're successful guys. Like, to them, it's a game, like you said earlier. So he learned a lot from them guys and became friends with them, and he could tell you stories and big corporation leaders, and you're talking about guys from Google and billionaires. I mean, not even talking millionaires, but billionaires, that he would associate with and he would call friends.
Tell us about the Google guy. You'd said something earlier about this Google guy.
And I don't know.
And who's the Google guy?
I don't know his name.
He's not very fast.
But I was talking to a couple of his buddies about kind of a couple stories before I came in here, and they said, you got to tell him about the guy that owns 10% of Google. I think Clint raced him in a 100-yard dash. Again, he gave him 10 or 12 feet, and the guy was running his heart out, and Clint beat him backwards, backpedaling.
The same distance?
I think for 20,000.
And
yeah, ended up beating him by 6-8 feet,
And he gave that guy a head start?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's running backwards and gives the other guy running forward a head start.
Right.
That's reverse odds.
Yeah.
And it's hard to buy a line like that.
And it's hard to do that when you just meet somebody, like,
yeah.
When you can, or thinking you can even beat him running backwards.
How much was it for?
I think $20K.
Okay. And these weren't one-time only bets? Did he have any, was he just an expertise in certain things?
People couldn't believe it. Like the things he would bring up to even bet, people, it was so outlandish. Yes, people were going to bet them, right?
Yeah.
And there were, after 10 or 15 of those stories, and these are all guys that talk, and like I said, they're all successful people, then it started to be almost impossible to catch action. So yeah, they figure it out. When you're betting for that kind of money, the word gets out, the stories are told, the tall tales and the lead, and at the end, man, he couldn't find a bet.
Yeah, you were saying that these guys would, seek out bets for him and
right.
then, get a little bit of a commission back
Absolutely.
from.
Yeah, if you're going to get him, I guess I'm allowed to say that, but yeah, if you were going to go out and get him a bet, or find a guy that was willing to bet him for 20 or 30,000, whatever it was, yeah, you were going to get a commission. I mean, so them guys in Vegas, like I said, I remember within 15 minutes of being there, 2 guys came up and said, Clint, I'm going to call you later. I got 2 guys that, you could shoot, and he'd kind of whisper off to them, let's call me, let's talk, So, yeah, they knew they were going to get a little chunk of it. Clint was going to take home the cheese, and everybody was going to be happy.
When he gets out of that business, though, and I'll call it a business, it seemed like it was a business. He has that big network of people, though. I mean, yeah, he's going to have endless golf outings. He's going to have plenty of places offering him a place to stay. Right. Just the network he's created in that time. People
wanting to play, when they, in other stories, I guess I can say it now, like a couple years after they built Victoria, and Victoria blew up, the most beautiful golf course, one of the nicest golf courses in the world. They got the chalets out there, so talking about guys with big money, they would fly guys in, rent the chalets out, and play for 72 hours or play for, for a few days for big money. And it was a way of him going to work.
Yeah.
You bring them in, you cater them, you feed them, and then you go out and take their money, But these guys, like I said, they were seeking him too. They wanted the action. When you're playing for that kind of money and you got that skill set, it's the action people thrive off of,
Was it ever the other way around, though? Was he ever just the person sitting on the bench watching somebody else attempt something as opposed to being the guy that was actually in action?
He couldn't. It was impossible. He had to have a piece of it. I mean, you could go somewhere, we'd go out and eat at, the Cork and Cleaver, and, he'd get the waitress or somebody'd call him over there and say, what you got? Or that they'd be over there flipping quarters, at Cork and Cleaver for $200. He would come and we would leave the restaurant and he'd be $500 richer. He wasn't an asshole. He would clown with you and make you feel good about losing. But you always, 9 out of 10 times you were going to lose. And I'm not just saying that, like I said, because it's my brother. I've witnessed it, 100 times. And it's just, the older we got, it was normal. He was going to leave. He wanted to do something, whether it was ripping up a napkin or flipping a quarter. I mean, he was going to beat you at it, and that's the way he lived, man.
The Parlor isn't just your run-of-the-mill barbershop. It is so much more. offering the latest in cuts, shaves, and other services for the man who wants to look his best. Ladies, we have you covered too. Styles, color, and highlights that will make eyes turn. Don't forget the kids. Looking for products to keep your new cut looking its best? We have the full line of Suavecito and Grade Before Shave products ready to take home with you. Look your best today by booking an appointment at the Parlor, 2106 West Franklin Street.
There's a story about a guy that took him to a gymnasium, and apparently he was for 97 out of 100 or whatever in these free throws. And long story short is he didn't like the balls inside that facility, right. So he wanted a fresh ball, and there was a kid in there playing basketball. And I guess he bought this for $100 off this kid. The right. Kid had paid $30 or something, as the story goes, and used that ball in the contest because it had more grip.
Right.
Afterwards, I guess the guy was so mad he lost the money that later on he wanted to get that ball, and he wanted to have that ball autographed by Clint.
I wanted to pay $5,000 for the ball back.
Yeah.
Well, the beginning of the story, he bought it from the kid. Well, the kid sat there and watched the whole thing unfold, and the kid said, "Well, I get my ball back." And Clint said, "Well, no, it's my ball. I gave you $100 for it."
Yeah.
Never gave him his ball back. He walked out of the gym with it, But no, that was a funny story. Yeah, the guy called and through text and all that. Yeah, wanted to buy the ball and put it in his office. Probably some penthouse somewhere.
Yeah.
Good
with
story.
his autograph
Good
on it.
Story to tell, man.
Yeah, and he's got the autograph of the guy that did it to him.
Absolutely. It's crazy.
Some people deserve that stuff. You say that you had a humble upbringing. I like to hear that. I mean, my family, when they came up here barefoot to Indianapolis, and they moved to Mars Hill up in Indianapolis. So I kind of know what it's like to have the very small house and not the greatest neighborhood as far as safety sometimes, but there's a part of town that's a little salty. Right. I think we all know it. It's got character though. People are prideful that are from there, and maybe they don't live there anymore necessarily. But Jimtown, it's got its moments, and apparently has its celebrities too. But that's where you lived. That's where you're from.
Yeah, we made it out, man. It was a small little shotgun house. Literally, when you say a shotgun house, I was little, but I remember, 4 of us kids and my 2 older parents, we were cramped. It was right there by Ronnie's fruit stand, man. So we could go down to Ronnie's fruit stand and get a Yoo-hoo. We were living life, but they ended up tearing our house down to build the EVSC school building. I remember my dad coming in and giving us all sledgehammers and stuff, saying you can beat up, you can bang up, break the windows, do whatever you want. I still remember that as a kid, And then we moved over on Benninghoff on the east side. Hell, we thought we hit the lottery.
I see you at the Aces games quite often, and that was only really late in the season, right?
We love UE. We love Coach Ragland, everything he does. He's in the shop quite a bit, and they do a lot for us, and in return we do a lot for them. So, yeah.
What do you think about this, though, that whole just the way the college sports has changed now?
It's crazy, man. The NIL money, we've got 7 or 8 kids, local athletes, that we give NIL money, give them $500 contracts, incentivize them for getting good grades, things like that. But, yeah, it's different. They play 3 years, they go in the portal, they get paid, man. I look at you look at guys just like last night, Matthew Fisher, from Memorial. He got drafted. Got drafted a little later than they thought he was going to in the 7th round. Well, what do you do? Because you're going to get NIL money to go to IU and be a star pitcher.
When you have a high school kid, okay, and say he's satisfied all of his sports for his high school career, maybe he played basketball, they lose in the regionals. Right. He's done. He's not playing baseball. He's not playing tennis. He's not playing any other sports the rest of the year. At that point, he can make a lot of decisions. He's crossed a threshold. Right. What? Who's to say he doesn't have $100,000 in his pocket or his bank account with 3 months left in his senior year? And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Maybe someone with responsibility would manage that. But I can tell you from my vantage point, if I was a young man in 1993,
right. It lead to some bad things, I think.
Yeah, thanks for filling that in for me because I was going to say some nasty words there. But, yeah. So nothing's changed. At least when they get to college, they don't have that conversation with them about their money in college. They never had to before.
Right.
But then they get to the pros, they have that stern conversation with them. Don't get taken. And, there's a lot of steps they take to educate people with that much money that quickly. In college, they're going to probably have to do that too. But to have that conversation with a high school senior, in January of his senior year, that's pretty scary.
Imagine.
And it's probably not going to stick. Right. It's not going to stick.
Well, even the pros, what's the rate? You look at the 30 for 30. What they say, 75% of all pro athletes are broke when they retire. I couldn't imagine being 17, 18 with $250,000. It'd go pretty quick.
It's not going to end well on that. I will say this, though. A lot of those kids don't have, before the whole change into this portal and the NIL, is that right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. I always forget the acronym on that.
Oh, yeah.
So before that happened, I mean, if you'd asked most, just take an Aces player or a USI player, for instance, they want to take their girlfriend down to the movies. They can't. Because, first of all, they can't get free tickets.
Right.
Second of all, they don't have time to go get a part-time job to have pocket money to take that young lady down to the movies. They can't take her to a dinner. And that's not fair because all their time is wrapped up into this sport for this college.
Right.
And that's where they went wrong. They never at least ease the valve somewhere else first. Sure. Give these guys some amenities so they can have a normal life, a normal social life, structure. But, yeah, to have them broke all the time, they didn't have time to make money on the side. They couldn't go get a part-time job. I mean,
right.
Try to schedule them at a fast food restaurant
right.
when they're in a college career. It's not going to happen. So there had to have been something had to have been done quickly, but I just think it was too quick.
Yeah.
It's like they turned it off. They turned it on, and then the spigot broke. And it just, there's nobody that's going to be able to repair that now.
There's a lot of money out there that you can gamble, legally gamble, and I mean, it's changed everything, man.
And it's sad that the Aces now have to put up with this.
Right.
You know, they get a guy like Coach Ragland, and he's a great representative, you know, in this area.
Awesome.
Local guy. And then we have the fact that he went to USI. You know, we have a little bragging right over that.
Oh, yeah.
And to have him here, but during the time he's here, he's had to really battle the fact that it's just going to churn out more players. He's going to have to work harder to get his roster filled.
Exactly.
And it's sickening, really.
He's got to work, and that's what it's a job. So outside of work, I see it. You know, he's got to go out and shake hands and make friends. He's trying to bring money into the program because you literally got to pay these guys to come play. Then you might get one. You know, look at Harmonious and these guys. You get one for 1 or 2 years that are studs. Then you lose them to a bigger school that's got more money. That's what it comes down to.
But don't we get players from the bottom?
Yeah, we get them from the bottom, and then you spend so much time on them, and you give them scholarships and give them money and house and feed them. And then, like I said, Coach Rags does his thing with them, and then you take a chance of losing them to a bigger program with more money.
Wes Carroll had a good year. Who doesn't like Wes Carroll? Can we find that list of people? He's just a great guy. And we talk about coaches.
I got his jersey right up in the bar along with his brothers. He's the first one to give me a jersey. We went and took it and framed it that day. And Coach Carroll and, his brother as well.
So Clint played there 1 year.
He actually played 2.
Okay, they got to the tournament the second time?
No, in '99, his freshman year, they had Craig Snow. They had a bunch of local guys. Marcus Wilson could shoot the lights out.
Yeah.
One of the best players to ever play at UE. He had Craig Snow, Chuck Hetty, Adam Seitz. You know, Clint came in with an amazing group. That year, man. They had Kurt Begley, big guy.
Yeah, he's still sitting courtside.
Yeah, and they had a hell of a team, man.
Yeah.
It was different. Like I said, hopefully we can get back there. I think give Rags a couple more years, he'll get us back.
They just have to figure out how to work this system.
Right.
Because, I mean, I think, the other one had been mastered for many decades, and then those relics have retired now.
Like I said, Rags has to go out in the community. People got to step up. You look at these big schools, IU, these are all alumni and stuff that are chipping in to give IU good players. Obviously, everybody wants to go play at IU, right? I'm just giving you an example, but it comes down to money, man. These kids, like I said, with these new rules, you hate to say it, but to get prime athletes, you got to come up with some prime cash.
Thank you so much for sharing some of these stories, man.
I'm grateful to be here, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.